Welcome to Tramlines, a podcast from Agrii. I'm your host, Tony Smith, putting your questions to the experts. In this episode, we're talking to Agrii's Ross Dilks, an agronomist and also a farmer. Jack Wilson, a crop input specialist at Riser, and Rachel Watling, senior marketing manager at Agrii. Today, we're asking the question, how to get into farming from a non-farming background. So, good morning to you all.
Good morning.
Morning, Tony.
Morning, Tony.
Good morning. So let's start. We're finding out a little bit about each of you. How did you get into farming and your current role? So, Ross, I'm going to start with you. I understand that actually you're also a farmer, but you're also an agronomist. So tell us about your journey into farming.
So journey into farming was, I came out of the womb when I was farming. So family dairy farm at home. And probably milking about 120 cows on about 250 acres. As the years have gone by, that's probably grown a bit. And then probably at the age of, I don't know, I'm trying to think now. When you first start to go to university, I went to Lancaster University. It was all about clouds and rocks. And then came back to the farm for a year. And then spent a bit of time with my agronomist at the time, actually, on the farm. And then he said it'd be a good role for me going forward. So I went to university and did crop science in Nottingham, and ever since that became an agronomist and just did put boots to the ground and got working.
You have a busy occupation. You know, you're farming, you've got milking cows, and you're an agronomist. And you haven't taken that traditional route to come back into farming. So very, very interesting. Now, Rachel, you didn't start in farming, did you?
No, I didn't. I started in the equine world.
So tell us a bit more. What were you doing?
So I went to the Royal Agricultural University and enrolled in my first year on the equine studies course. Soon realised that wasn't really the route that I wanted to go down, and swapped onto the international business degree in my second year, which had the slant towards food and farming.
Right, so that's really quite different to how Ross came into farming, but from a non-farming background per se. Can I ask you? You went into equine studies. You know, what attracted you to going into, in a way, an interest that was still outdoors and in the countryside?
Yes, so I did grow up in the countryside, but not on a farm, and was very lucky to have the horses at home. But actually went to equine college before university, to Rachel College, hence the Essex accent. So I do apologise. And it was there that...
What was that, Ross?
It can't be worse than my Derbyshire accent.
Well, we're covering the breadth of the country here, for our listeners. So that's the richness of it. Fantastic.
Yes, so the two units sat quite closely together, and sort of became friends with some of the guys on the course and thought, what's this all about? And it just really attracted me, really interested me. And I thought, what a better industry to get into than the biggest job on the planet, which is farming. Yeah,
fantastic. So, Jack, you currently, work in a very specialist role. As you said, what you deliver is precision for your farm clients. And you've been on Tramlines before. Absolutely superb podcast. If anybody wants to listen to that, it really is worth listening to. But how did you get into farming?
Well, it's funny listening to Ross and Rachel because it's almost a bit of a mix of the two. So I grew up on a dairy farm down in Shropshire. Dad doesn't milk anymore. He does contract rearing. And then once I'd left school, I didn't go to university. I actually went straight out to work with horses. So I did a lot of riding for people, and that was kind of my whole job was horses for a while. Had a little bit of a nasty accident, broke my pelvis, and then decided I should probably think about getting a proper job, because they're quite dangerous beasts, those things, really. So I thought about, I wanted to actually get into equine sales, but I couldn't get an equine sales role, so I just got a normal sales role. So this was as well, at the same time, me and my now wife, we moved up to Scotland. So I had a couple of horrible jobs. I I did credit cards on the street, only stood that for a week. Couldn't do that any longer. I sold windows and doors for about 6 months. So it's amazing the horrible world of plastic and glass, as I used to call it. And then I did cars for a year. So I worked for a car dealership. Enjoyed that for a time. But then just found standing in a showroom, staring out the window was, a bit demoralizing. So I needed to get back out in the countryside and back to farming, really.
Sure. And can I sort of ask you, I can hear your the frustration that clearly was there, working in that world. How does it feel right now, Jack, to be working in the job that you do in the outdoors, working with your clients?
Yeah, it's funny. It is. I really do love my job. I love how the flexibility of it. I love how you can just that relationship with farmers that you build. And that was one of the things I think I liked about sales was people, and building up that rapport and getting to know people. But what I like particularly about Agrii is you're building that relationship over time. It's not a quick come in, buy a car, disappear off, and there you go. You're constantly speaking to your customers, and you're not always trying to sell them something. A lot of the time, you're just, shooting the shit. If if I could say that.
I don't think you can, but you said it, so there you are. But so that dealing with people and being of value in terms of the service that you're providing, that seems to be a bit of a thread between you two chaps in terms of, that's really important in the job. People are important in the job. Rachel, for you, let's just pick up on that. How do you feel about, the value of what you do in your current role?
I feel like we're now doing a massive plug for Agrii, and this isn't what this is meant to be at all. But to mirror Ross and Jack, love the job. My favourite saying is, "You're not born to pay bills and die." And I love my job, and every day is different. And whether it's the varied role of 1 minute being out on farm at one of our eye farms in Scotland, to a meeting down at Throws Farm, our leaf innovation centre, working out the strategy or budget for the next year. It's really varied, and there's a great culture there.
Yeah. And I think, your comment there about, being a plug for your current employer, what I can sense is in your different roles is this passion for what you're doing in this industry, which is farming, which sounds fantastic to me. It's really inspiring, actually, to hear what you're saying. It really is. In terms of being established in your current roles, is there still an opportunity to upskill? Are there still opportunities for further training?
Yeah, I think the training I've had since I've joined the job has been second to none, really. I did the basis facts course. It was my kind of first thing that I did when I took on the account manager role for Riser, so I needed that. So I did that. I've done a course on advanced quality of soils this year. I'm currently doing basis seed sellers, and I'm also doing basis agronomy forage crops as well. So that's plugging Agrii again, but they do the training available is very good, and that's what enables us to give such a good service to our customers.
And Ross, for you, is it the same?
Yeah, I think, to be fair, the training's there, and the best training you'll get is on farm, to be honest, or with your colleagues. I think you can sit on lots of courses and sit behind a desk, but that's not really the job. I think the real training is on farm and with your customers and what they actually want.
Sure. So we'll come back to that value of learning from colleagues in a second. But Rachel, I just want to come back to you because you're not giving advice to farmers directly. So what training are you interested in, or what training have you taken on board?
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily training. I was lucky enough to get a bursary to attend the Oxford Farming Conference, which is an event that happens every year in January, just after Christmas. And it was there that my eyes were really opened into the various different routes into farming and opportunities there, and fantastic networking. But my route started a little different. I actually was going to train to become an agronomist, and I did my PA1 and PA6 training courses, which allow you to go out spraying. I know Jack looked surprised. And I decided that isn't something that I wanted to do. And I actually went down more of a sales route within the industry, within data and modelling and consultative sales. So I actually went on the Miller Hyman strategic sales course. So my training has come from a slightly different angle, and it's been quiet the last couple of years, but now looking to enrol on the Chartered Institute of Marketing course in a couple of months' time.
What I'm hearing are roles that you're involved in. It isn't just getting your boots muddy, is it? So Rachel, how broad is that career opportunity to work in farming but not actually being in the field with farmers? Does that make sense?
Yes, I think I'm a prime example of that on this call. I think there is more to farming than getting your wellies dirty, as you said, Tony. And I like to go and get them dirty because I think it's really important to touch the soil, particularly when you're marketing to farmers. You want to go and understand that. And I'll never probably do my bases and facts and completely understand, but it's important to get as close to it as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, there must be a lot of roles within logistics, finance, marketing. Any others that I've missed there?
HR, finance.
What was that, Ross?
Credit control.
Credit control, absolutely. These are all important jobs, aren't they? Because it's in the agricultural business, isn't it? So we need the great technical advice on farm, but actually all of those roles are really, really critical, aren't they? It's all there, isn't it?
And I think when you look at a farmer alone, he has got many different talents, he or she. They can be, they're a mechanic, they're accountants, they're scientists. And when you look at how broad their role goes, you can then clearly see the different routes into it.
I just want to come back to, and you mentioned this, Ross, the value of learning from colleagues in the field. This is also actually very relevant in other industries as well. But what is the value of learning from those that have walked those fields or been in the industry for a number of years? What is the value of learning from others? Jack, what is that value?
Well, I think particularly in the Lothian and Borders team, you walk into a room and there's 15 agronomists. Some of them have been there for 30 plus years, and you can't buy that experience. And like Ross was saying, the basis courses are great. It gives you all that information. You need to know. There's things you need to know, and it gives you a good grounding.
And Ross, you were the one that mentioned learning from colleagues. How important has that been for you?
Yeah, massively, really. It's not just the experience of what products to use or how to treat a crop or whatever it might be. It's how to deal with people, whether that's marketing or credit control or anything. It's all about dealing with people because that's who you're dealing with. And that's more important than anything.
Very good top tip there, Ross. Let's just talk about how our industry feels. We were at Groundswell recording some podcasts at the back end of last year, and several people who have been in the industry for a while commented about how vibrant it felt, how inclusive it felt, and how young it felt in terms of its energy. How do you see the energy and diversity within the industry at the moment? Are we as inclusive as we could be? Jack, what do you think?
I think a lot of farmers they've been forced to adapt. It's seen over the last few years of smaller farms becoming uneconomical to run, so there's having to be a change to the industry. I think we still need more young people, and I think there is going to be, over the next kind of 50 years, it's going to be a lot of these farms disappearing, and there's not always someone waiting in the wings to take them on, which could be a real shame if that land's not being utilised.
So Rachel, as an industry then, what can we do more of to attract people from all backgrounds of a variety of ages to come into our amazing industry? What can we do more of?
I fell into it organically, but not down the straightest path. There isn't a module at school on farming. There are a couple of agricultural colleges, but it's you're knowing about them through other people and through other means. And I think one of the best things I did was attend serials with 20 CVs and just went round to the different stands and met the different people and the different companies, and then weave my way into where I wanted to end up within the sector.
On this subject, how can we, as an industry, encourage more people to take an interest at looking at the industry as a possible place for them to start and build their careers?
I don't know really, because I think there needs to be an initial interest from that person really, whether you be a farmer's son who's probably not just quite happy at the farm, or you still want to farm but you can't see a role for yourself, or whether that be someone at a university or someone who doesn't quite know what they want to do really. I think it's difficult to just go out there and, I mean, you can't just go on the street and say, oh, do you fancy being an agronomist, or do you fancy to be a farmer? I think that needs to be some initial interest and etc. And I think things like the Jeremy Clarkson programme has highlighted other job roles rather than just farming. I think like you've got Cheerful Charlie and you've got Caleb and other people that are his support people. And I think that's important to show. And I think there are things out there. And I think if people are interested in farming, they'll generally watch things like This Farming Life or whatever it might be on the telly. And I think if those programmes or those things show the other opportunities within farming, apart from just chasing sheep and milking cows and driving tractors, then I think, other people might see that there is options. Because as a farmer myself, it's not just you on farm. You've got a whole support network of staff and other reps and things that help you along your way.
We're coming towards the end of the podcast now, and I'd like to ask you to leave our listeners with a top tip. And that top tip is around, what would you offer to somebody who is thinking, just even considering stepping into our industry? What would that top tip be, Jack?
I think one of the problems we have with farming is that it's difficult to get people from outside the industry to come in. And I think that's maybe it's a public view of the industry or the industry itself and kind of how it works. But for me, I would just make a start. I started as a soil sampler. I lucky enough that Morven gave me opportunity, and then I've moved on. And you can do so much. You don't need to. You're not gonna, like Ross was saying, walk in and be an agronomist. But you can walk in and work in logistics, or you can work in marketing, or not walking in marketing. That's probably a bad thing to say. But yeah, the sky's the limit, I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
The sky's the limit. I like that. Ross, what would your top tip be?
My top tip, really, I don't know if it's top tip or not, but I'd volunteer, to be fair. I think if anyone can go to it saying, oh, give me a job. But actually, I came to the job I didn't like my agronomist at home. I followed him for a few days, and then I finished university and did all his soil sampling. He paid for my fuel, and I did his soil sampling while he went on holiday, and then got my name about and got into the office, and people started to know me, and that's how I got into it, really. And that doesn't just go as an agronomist or into the agri business or any of the agri businesses. I think it could be on farm. I mean, I've got the farm at home, and we've had guys who come and they'll come and do a Sunday morning, say, oh, do you mind if I just come and watch you do a bit of milking, or can I help you out a bit? Yeah, by all means. And we've got a guy who works for us now who started that way.
Yeah, and what you're sharing there is that the industry is open to allowing somebody to try and experience it before making that decision and stepping forward. Great advice, Ross, as well. Rachel, what are your thoughts?
I think if you know that farming's for you and you're graduating soon, I would have a look at the MDS scheme, which is basically 4 placements within a year. And that might not be accurate, but I believe it's 4 placements within 1 year, or it might be over 2. And you basically have 4 different roles within 4 different areas of the sector. And I think that's a really great way to have a bite-sized taste of those different jobs within the industry, and it will help you navigate your way to where you want to go.
Wonderful advice from all of you, and thank you too for sharing your journey into the industry and sharing also your passion for the industry, which is absolutely palpable. So thank you very much indeed. That's it for this podcast, but do tune in again as we meet the experts throughout the season, exploring the many immediate and longer term questions for growers and farmers in the UK. If you have any questions that you'd like us to ask the experts, email info@agrii.co.uk. See you next time.